probably fun. Alright, this was a finals of an Alima League, 160 to be specific. If you would like these replays, you can actually have them. Not from me though. You gotta go to patreon.com/holymoly and give a few bucks over, fork it over, for the best replay packs ever, basically. Since GSL doesn't give out their replay packs, this is the best one you can get. So if you're looking to steal some builds, you're a Protoss player who's struggling in PvP, this is the replay pack to get. Personally, I'm excited for it because Zest is amazing PvP. People just seem to sleep on that a little bit, you know? Let's do the intros for the only time, since I believe in not doing it every single time. In the bottom right is the pink Protoss, it is Zest. In the top left, as the blue Protoss, it is Stats. This is not the first time these guys have faced off against each other. And this is on the old patch, so the Warp Prism is still 200 minerals. That's basically it. Yeah. I don't know what else affects PvP. The Warp Prism pickup range, I guess, is 5, not, or is 6, not 5. But that doesn't really affect PvP so much. Oh man. Remains on stats. Okay. We do have Zest throwing down that pylon, which is going to be very evident to Stats' little probe here. But that might just be what Zest wants. Very difficult to tell exactly what's going on when you look at the base, right? Because these guys know PvP so much, it is easy to confuse and fake something. Oh, I don't have a pylon in my base. Well, he must be proxying. Well, you would think I'm proxying, but I'm actually not. So am I or aren't I? Well, maybe I could tell that by the amount of gas you have. You instantly mined out of your both gases, right? Well, I thought you would say that, so I did that, but I'm actually just going for a regular opener. You know, like, it just... It's really hard to tell the exact things, because they've all gotten kind of good at faking each other out. One thing you can depend on is this pylon scouting those first 2 units. So we do have 2 stalkers versus 2 stalkers. Oh no, I was wrong. 2 stalker follow-up of a stalker sentry, okay. So stalker sentry is like the most basic thing, the best thing you can really do defensively. But Zest is actually going for something with this pylon. It wasn't tech, it was a 3rd gateway, and it's gonna go for a very basic bitch build, let's be honest. It's gonna be a 3-gate attack in PvP. Now Stats should feel very confident against this, but only if he was able to figure out that it was exactly that. Now the pylon was killed before he could see the follow-up. 2 stalkers first is kind of, it's like last on the list of things you usually see, right? First being a sentry stalker, and then the second being 2 adepts, I would say. And then third, it's like, okay, sometimes you get 2 stalkers as an opener. But yeah, this Hallucinated Phoenix sees that there's a severe lack of anything happening right now, and Stats is able to figure out exactly what's going on here. Although I maybe spoke too soon. We do have a split of units, so he figures out that it could be a proxy Stargate, but doesn't know that it's actually 3 gates. So he knows something, he just didn't know exactly what it was. Now he's figured it out. A little more cautious to the front attack, seeing 4 stalkers at the front. Followed up with 2 sentries after the 2 stalkers and just warped in more stalkers as much as possible. Tries to cut off the reinforcements to make this a favorable stalker battle for him, but kind of misses the mark on that. Way too many from this side coming through here, and that's the really nasty thing about Thunderbird, is that this pylon does allow you to warp in. Slowly, of course, but it does allow you to warp in. Very nasty stuff here from Zest that we might still see on the current patch. With Thunderbird still on the map. Well, adepts being warped in always add complications. You can't force field the shades out. So you just gotta have your probe ready to go. And luckily Stats does. Stats is a smart cookie, and this is probably one of the most common follow-ups that we see happen. Some adepts to mix things up. Because adepts don't just have to try and go into the main base. They can actually come from behind and get these sentries, which is kind of what Zest was trying to do. But it's unsuccessful. The 3 adepts spend time on the high ground. Not attacking much, and these 3 adepts are blocked by the force field. With the Immortal out, this seems to be it. There's a Stargate done and ready to be used for Zest, but I don't think it's really going to do as much as he wants. He's up against someone who's had 2 Nexus mining partially this entire time. Well, he's only down 3 probes. That is a hefty amount of minerals to wait for, and then you gotta wait for the Nexus to actually finish. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that Stats has won this first game. GG. That is the tricky thing about it, isn't it? Stats almost had 2 Stalkers, crucially in the main base, except he was able to kind of sniff out exactly what was happening. Maybe a little too much of a tell when the 4 Stalkers came forward at the natural. That could have been a difference. A shield battery in the main instead of shield batteries at the natural also going to be a big difference. Like, you know something is up. It's fairly easy to tell that something is up. It's just like what exactly is up is always the trick. What is up, my dudes? Who knows? It's PvP. This was an all PvP semifinals and finals, guys. That's so weird. This is going to be a cast slash actually trying to analyze these games, since it's still going to be what we're going to see in the current meta PvP. I don't think it's changed up that much, you know? By the way, is anyone going to TwitchCon? I hope to see many of you at Montreal, but if anyone's going to TwitchCon, I will also be there. Alright, game number 2. I do have stats up 1. We're on the old map pool since these are old replays. All these activities across the pond. Ah, you Europeans get enough stuff. Don't you be complaining. I should really be paying more attention to how they block with that pylon. How they prepare to wall off the pylons. I'm so bad about it. It's a little moot because this is on a map that's no longer in the map pool, so does it matter that I can now wall off on Cyberforest? No. Did I have a lot of trouble walling off on Cyberforest? Yes, I did. What I finally figured out, though, in my PvP adventures, playing random, getting Protoss occasionally, is that, I mean, the whole goal is to get a shield battery at most here, and then if it's if it's 1 space instead of 2, then you can still fit a pylon in awkwardly. So if you think you're like messing it up and you have too much space, you're probably fine. That's what I learned. And obviously for the casters, you can really pay attention to how exactly they fill their gas, or at least try to. Zest is once again going for that proxy pylon. It's just always a question of, do they actually use it? Taking bets. Do they use it or don't they? 2 Stalkers once again. I mean, this is like 3 weeks old. Almost a month old, actually. And it is peculiar to see them go for... And this time I am correct, I didn't misspeak. It's 2 Stalkers for both sides. Stats, though, might be interested in looking around for that second pylon, realizing that, again, it's not back at home. So he looks for it with the probe, and if he finds it, he can try and send the stalkers out to at least tango with the pylon, and then if Zest sends his 2 stalkers forward to try and save it, then there's a little micro battle, and maybe something can occur. But Stats happens to do that thing where he finds it at the very last second. You will see that it's actually being used, and that's probably the most important thing. Now, it's too late to really tango. He won't get any damage done. The stalkers are already here, and that would have been awkward for him. Any shots taken first are obviously bad. You're at the same amount of units, and your follow-up units aren't exactly super capable fighters. But they are important. A couple force fields can always help out. Stargate follow-up from Zest on a 3rd Nexus as well. So, I mean, he's getting a 3rd gateway. The Nexus comes down, too. And a Stargate? Very weird. But I guess something that you can afford when you stop producing out of the gateways. 2 Adepts not being too expensive. And then not going for 2 Stalkers or 2 Sentry follow-up. Okay. And Zest will eventually have Hallucinated Phoenix to use to see this, but the timing on it is so weird now. Oh, okay. Alright, I mean, it's not that weird then. So you can see that the gateway isn't being used, and a bunch of reinforcements waiting there, which might be a sigh of relief. And then he's gonna get to the main base as the Oracle pops, which, I mean, as long as he can get his units in position isn't too bad, but I think if he wanted to see that it's not dedicated, like, yeah, he sees the Nexus, that maybe he would have canceled the shield batteries. Whew, that was close. But 1 shield battery in the main is going to finish up here. Natural one's already done. And the Phoenix does see the Stargate now. I mean, I guess peace of mind. 1 Oracle won't do any damage. Zest literally gets 1 Oracle, and then, oops, a daisy. Let the Adepts in. Well, that's a mistake. Or Stats lets the Adepts in. Colors, players, confusing. So Zest goes for 1 Oracle and then goes into a Robo. I mean, this all feels like it's very drunken fighting style, right? Like, this can't all have been his plan from the get-go. PvP is a mystery. But Stats is doing what he should be doing, which is going, like, staying the course. Just producing probes, trying to play it safe with some shield batteries, and then getting into Immortals, and, I mean, eventually a Twilight Council and a Forge. Come on, I know you can do it. Oh, gotcha. Pylon should be taken out so there's no more Adepts. We're kind of past that point. Zest manages to come out ahead on workers here. He did get 5, so that makes sense. He's ahead 5 workers. And even though he was later to the Nexus, I guess Stats had to skip a couple of rounds of production to defend against all these things that were happening. Just like all the things were happening. Forge is coming down at the exact same time. Stats stops investing into Immortals, but he might pick it up again. I'm always also confused when you get gas as the natural. You know, I guess in the other matchups, I feel like it's a sense of urgency. Well, not PvT. I do a 3 gas style in PvT, but in PvZ, it's like 3:30 to 4. It's basically all the gas timings. But in PvP, we had both of them get gases at like 5 minutes. Okay, well, Zest, okay, Stats took a long time to saturate his, but that's when they were built. They can really delay it. And you have all these Stalkers, too, from Stats that just feel like they're going to be useless as the game goes on. I mean, the less Stalkers you can make, it feels like the better you will be in the long run. They're pretty expensive. They start to get really, obviously, hard countered by the Immortals and Archons and even Charge Lots. And you don't upgrade into them. You don't get Blink. But sometimes they can help. I mean, their attack is not, you know, useless. I feel like Zest has the better looking army. Or you will have the better looking army once he starts actually investing into it. But right now, no need to build army yet. He's waiting on his gateways, waiting on starting charge, just doing some Warp Prism harassment. Actually recalls the Immortal. Wait a minute. Go back. Hold on. Wait. So he gets the attack in again. Oh, the shield had popped. Oh my god. I thought that might have been a bug. I was like, wait. Like, that should have died. That was another volley of soccer attacks, but the shield popped at the exact right moment. Wow. Wow. Nice save there and saves the second immortal. Losing the warp prism, not too bad, even though now it's 250 minerals. It's still only minerals, y'all. Just calm down. I guess the gases are only really necessary when you start to add on these Archons, which are just now being added on. Stats at some point went to his own Stargate, which I think is just a really weird reaction that I don't think really has a ton of merit in it. An Oracle Revelation is good, and maybe Stasis Trap can still be very effective, but it's pretty late to bother getting that. That's really weird. I think we're just gonna wait in the Archons, right? You gotta wait for the +2, and then you go with the +2 in the charge, and then you attack into your opponent, and then it's decided right then and there. So, stats having slightly slower +2 might be a big deal. Maybe. I have heard of people getting Stargates just to deal with Warp Prism harassment. They think it's that annoying, but I don't know if it's really that severe. Zest is going forward, so he can't have anything to deal with this, really. I was gonna bring his own Warp Prism back, but he does have a plan to attack pretty prematurely. That +2 not even halfway done. Warp Prism is taken care of. We have a Phoenix away from Zest as well, so it's gonna have to be recalled. It's gotta be recalled anyways. This Oracle just pops on and is gonna be able to grab a High Templar, maybe? Nope, feedback instead. And Zest does not commit to the attack. Still dealing with the Warp Prism harassment, but there he forces the recall. Now maybe goes for it, because +2 will finish if he goes across the map now. And okay, there we go. Moves across the map, loses 6 workers. He's already all in, so he's not going to be replacing those. September started? Oh my god, guys. September has started, so if you wanted to ever subscribe to me, and you've never subscribed before, then know it's 50% off. Thanks, Fear Dragon. And that goes for every single channel. I'm not super special. Just to be clear. Alright, this got some hallucinated Archons on the front lines. That's pretty cool. Force Field's obviously not being so helpful this stage of the game, so 2 Guardian Shields and anything else can go into hallucinations. I like it. I like it a lot, but the Concave looks initially better for stats. That +2 is done for Zest and not for the Blue Protoss, which seems to be a real difference maker here. The Archons are also taking a couple of shots here and there. And the actual Archons, the real Archons of Zest, are getting maximum damage. The Phoenix even helping out by going ahead and lifting an Immortal is quite good. And this is a very, very close battle, but one that seems to be going favorably for Pink Protoss. The last Archon does go down, and that is GG. Stats have been doing some probe damage, but very minor. He had lost the war. I think that was just a weird PvP. The reaction of Zest when all of his little surprises failed seemed to work out when they maybe should not have. But I'm not even sure how stats like responds to them better. Right? I guess if he hallucinates the Phoenix, I can't do that faster. If he had, okay, maybe this way. If he had a Stalker Sentry from the get-go, then he has hallucinated Phoenix to see that it's not being warped in and that there's a Stargate on the way, and then he can just place his Stalkers in the right position instead of getting shield batteries. Like, maybe that's how he gets ahead. And then I guess he doesn't let the Adepts in. And he should have been a little ahead in some regard if he didn't let the Adepts in. It was so weird. Oh yeah, thanks, Borsty. That's what I meant. I wish there was like something closer I could look in on, but even with the vision that we have, seeing everything, we unfortunately still don't see the minds of the players and exactly what they're thinking. But I'm thinking that's just like drunken fighting style. Just took a swig of soju and was like, let's just fucking do this. Our third map is Acropolis, which means it is in the current map pool. We can still learn from it. I have nice handwriting. False. My handwriting has been called bad by almost everyone who's ever seen it. And anyone who hasn't seen it, whoopsie-daisy, or hasn't said it looks bad is probably being nice. But I know that's false. That is false right there. My signature is the only one I can still attach. I think my signature matches my name and my personality. I'll give you that. I'm one of the few people that just don't bother having a cursive. Honestly, because I'm not sure I know what the Z is in cursive. Just a guy with thank you for the 6-month resub. But also because I wanted people to be able to tell, like, oh yeah, that's ZombieGrub. Instead of like the whole like, well, can anyone help me remember who has this really random ass cursive, gigantic signature? But I think my handwriting is very scraggly and wild, but it fits the name ZombieGrub, so. So they taught handwriting in school instead of typing. Well, they always teach handwriting in school, but in elementary school. I was taught cursive. I was part of the generation that was taught, you're gonna need cursive when you go to college, and then we obviously don't. But I think I might have been the last one. So I was trying to pay attention to the exact timing of the gas intake. Let's actually compare, shall we? So he doesn't put any immediately in here. Stats does. Stats gonna have more gas. And then he decides to put 2 in at a time instead of letting it rally in. Or they did rally in, actually, my bad. People aren't taught cursive anymore? I'm not sure. If they are taught cursive, it's hopefully no longer taught as a skill you'll actually need to use, basically. Like, just learn your signature and that's about it. No one else is gonna ever ask you to write in cursive. Yeah, my handwriting is art. Okay, so stats are gonna have more gas, but I think he just went for the standard, what is actually a very standard gas. It was Zest who kind of, he was the one that was a little off. He was the one that waited. So he had like 60 less gas living in total, but now it's different because he goes for 2 adept follow-ups. Which I guess makes sense. Oh, but he goes for 2 centuries. Nope, didn't learn anything from that. No, that's I'm not exactly sure what the gas timings would have indicated. I mean, no matter what, if they have less gas, you're thinking less technology, but when you compare it to stats here, stats is, I guess he is going for a 1-base robo, so, but his build is what you usually do. Or what I've usually seen when I, look at build orders in PvP. So, could it have been indicative of a fast third proxy if Zest was going to do it? Well, Zest didn't. He put on the pylon to scare stats and then didn't actually use it. Stats unfortunately found it with the last run by this probe. It already committed to the robo, but this robo might have been not reactive to Zest's shenanigans. He might have actually want to use it to attack. Took a grad school admission test. I had to write out this honesty paragraph verifying it was me. Well, then you not knowing everything in cursive, I guess, is something that would verify it, right? 2-gate is absolutely the standard. There's nothing else besides 2-gate. I talk in cursive. But if you do get a fast robo, then you can use the warp prism to harass. It won't be 2 immortals immediately, obviously, but I'm not sure if this is making the best out of a poor scenario, but considering that Stats was able to get away with a Nexus then robo in the previous 2 games, I feel like this might have been on purpose. It just is kind of like questionable early harassment because it's just not convincing. 4 stalkers against what Zest already has. Not doing too hot, you know? So I'm undecided. I had to write it in cursive, not read it. Right, but you not necessarily knowing how to write in cursive is also something that would tell them it's you. Teaching it helps with dexterity? Really? I mean, I'm not opposed to thinking that it might. I mean, that sounds sort of legit, but is it actually enough to really matter? And it's faster than writing type. It is faster. I remember that was one of the key benefits of it, but does it really matter since everyone types? I mean, the reason that it's gone is because everyone types. So if it can do anything better than typing, feel free and at me, but it doesn't. So if I'm sitting there, you know, writing in my non-cursive thinking, this is taking forever, I'm not going to take the speed boost of 1 or 2 letters per minute or whatever the fuck it is over the speed boost of typing 120 words per minute. They're not taking out handwriting, though, you guys. I feel like this is like the second or third person that said it. They're not taking out handwriting, they're taking out cursive. Specifically cursive. And I don't think they are. I think they're just reducing the amount of time and, oh my god! And, importance on it. Instead of being like, you're gonna use this all the time, guys, you really need to know it. They're gonna be like, yeah, you could know it, but whatever. But obviously not taking out handwriting. Oh my god. You still need to learn how to write. Thank you, Gunfingers, for the 19 months. Favorite new war chest skin? You know, someone asked me yesterday, and I took a gander. I have no favorite. I don't think it's something I really care enough to have a favorite on, so. That is a lot of adepts. This does seem to be the way to defend against adepts, though. So let's take a look, because Stats did something very different this game. Finally something different. The real letters, the non-cursive letters. Yeah. So he goes for the harassment. And then... So Zest is doing the normal thing. So he has to start it again. Which might just be to deal with the Warp Prism, because it's such an early Warp Prism, he figures it'll be worth stopping it from harassing him. Because it is going to harass him. And then he goes for a relatively fast forge, but that's mostly because Stats is choosing something else. He's going a different direction here. Now, when you go for the Adepts, I already knew that you needed only a 3rd gas instead of 4 gases total. But that's already a way to tell. And then seeing no forge and all these gateways is obviously also pretty good. But if you have the forge, theoretically, you know, adepts do fairly well against immortals. They don't take any extra damage from immortals, and they can jump on top of the immortal. And their numbers are just going to be bigger than if you're going for immortals. But what you can do is you can throw down a lot of like cannons. So I feel like Zest has done this response multiple times. There was a period, not a month ago, but rather like 4 months ago, where it seems like a lot of PvPs ended with adept all-ins. And the goal is to get to cannons, so you have a forge, right? If you don't have a forge, you probably have some other type of decent army. Like maybe you already have charge lots, or you already have Archons or whatever, but... And then get to Archons, because Archons are really the best thing. Sentries, so cannons and sentries are the best thing to do against the adepts. And then get to Archons if you can. He force fields the army away, which I actually don't think is bad, right? I think his idea was that he didn't want the immortals crashing through his cannons. But the idea with the force fields is usually to push the adepts away once they shade in. I guess it's both. Push the regular non-adept army away and push the adepts away. Ah, this is so close. Oh my god. 2 immortals left over is usually enough to do the whole time, but the Phoenix actually help out a tremendous amount. Stats obviously replaced that one War Prism that was super dead. Now Zest adds on charge, but I think if he could, getting a couple of Archons would have been much better, but he can't. Because he's producing all these other things that cost gas, and he's lost at least a 4th gas mining. This is super, super close. Killing the War Prism would be absolutely critical, but both Immortals actually about to die here. War Prism also dies, so no reinforcements. And that is going to be Zest's victory. Holy shit. I mean, he thought he had almost everything he needed to hold that, but that was really close. And behind it, Stats does try and get a macro game going, but it's not going to happen. The technology of Zest is just too good. That's the thing, though. Immortals aren't necessarily what you want or need against adepts, but Immortals are never bad to have, of course. Ooh, thank you, SC2 Pat, for that tier 1 sub. It should have been 50% off because it's September. So I hope you got your deal. Thank you very much. And from here on out, we just wait for Zest to accumulate an army with Archons to kill his opponent. Stats gotta be the default follow-up. If you fuck up in PvP, it's gotta be to go into Disruptors. Zest bothers going into a 3rd Nexus. I mean, so does Stats, but Stats trying to catch up is taking some risks. Do you get your $5? Well, I never got $5 to begin with. No one does. We still get the same split we usually do, even though you guys pay $2.50. There you go. Number 1. Such a cute little emote. But yeah, this game Stats goes Colossus, and I just don't know why that would really be effective. First of all, Colossus builds in PvP seem to be kind of lame. I'm not a fan of them. I'm not on board. Second of all, as a comeback unit, they're not a comeback unit. They're just not. They're annoying to deal with, but they've mostly been, I mean, it's been flipping 9 years. Like, they've been figured out. You know how to deal with Colossus, even if you don't have, you know, Vikings or, I guess in this case, Phoenix, but good old Concave is usually gonna do it. Especially with a Protoss army, which is chunky. Even their Zealots. And the Colossus is just, like, so ineffective. That's what really gets me about Colossus in this matchup, is that it's so ineffective. Either it's attacking units that have, like, decent armor and decent health, not really any light units, or it's attacking the light Zealots, and it's hitting, like, 2 at a time because they're charging forward. And the Colossus feels useless. And we're gonna see what happens here. The Archons are gonna really be the heroes. They take out all of the Adepts. The Colossus is adding just a tiny bit of damage. It's currently attacking an Immortal, and not even able to kill it. And Zest just simply steamrolls through this. Steamroll. He also had 2 upgrade advantage. Everything was going his way, but yeah. Why not Disruptors? GG. Like, the amount of importance they put on cursive sometimes. Like, your parents would... Well, depending on your parent. Like, my mom hates that I have bad handwriting. My entire family, except my mother, has bad handwriting. And she always kind of just does, like, she does, like, this, like, thing when she sees us write stuff. But, like, I would love if people who actually want to improve their handwriting. But it's not something that actually interested me. Like, I could do it. But if I saw it as, like, an art form, then maybe I would have been interested. But instead, they just kind of taught it as, like, this, like, mechanical thing you have to learn and be good at because... And then no real reason was given. You know, art's supposed to be, like, flexible and freeing and creative and stuff like that. And then instead, they were like, nope, you gotta do it this way, you gotta be good at it, and if you don't, you're gonna fail college. And you're like, oh no. Really? Okay. Well, I guess. Oh. You think I can do that again? Get an autograph from all the casters? Yeah, absolutely. They're not that difficult to find. I just combine my cursive and print into one weird amorphous font. What does that even look like? I'd say until the very end when you all came out. That is the best way to do it. I like vaguely recall you mentioning this last year. We go out to, like, I mean, I know it's kind of lame. We go out to go to the bathroom. And we go out to look around DreamHack, and we're out in the player pit as well. If you see someone in the player pit, unless they're actually playing, it's not really that, it's not bad to just, like, try and get their attention. To get them over to the edge. But I know some people who are really hesitant to do that. I mean, I was hesitant to do it. I saw Flash once, and he wasn't doing anything. And I really wanted his signature. This was like 4 years ago. And I didn't call out his name, but someone else did, like 10 minutes later. And he came over and signed their stuff, and then this big old line formed. And I was like, damn it! That could have been me. Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about, Murder by Modem. That's exactly. Well, that's true, Thry6. Yeah. Okay, so what do we got here? Zest goes for a very funny little pylon here. Totally fake. Not going to use it for anything. Stats did scout it. And has, once again, got to do that thing where he's like, well, you could be using it. You could not be using it. He had 2 Adept Opener into 2 Soccer and then 2 more Soccers. And there is actually not a Nexus. This is an attack. So the pylon was a fake. But Zest is definitely doing an attack. Now, is gases change at all for this? No, I just did what stats did last game. I won't if you play proxy. Yeah. Okay. So, he does that. And then stats went for Soccer Sentry stock. No, 2 stock. Wait. Why does he only have this many units? You know, for 2 Stalkers, then he got 1 Sentry. Wait a minute. Why does he only get 1 Sentry here? He has enough to get 2 Sentries. And Sentries are like 50 minerals, right? So it doesn't really push off your Nexus that much. But it only gets 1 Sentry here. I guess he was still, I mean, maybe he, like, was preparing to start a Stalker. If he saw something. But you could also just cancel your Stalker. I mean, why wait? Oh, alright. Well, anyways. So then, 2 Sentries. Now this means his Hallucinated Phoenix isn't going to be particularly fast, because it wasn't Sentry with a Stalker first. Which might just work out well for Zest. Thank you, Hagotron, for that tier 1 sub and taking advantage of September. Those you place from a best of 5, they are indeed. So follow up on the Robo. I mean... This Robo feels awfully late. I mean, wasn't it after the Sentry started? Is it really that great to have this late of a Robo if you have a couple Sentries? Stat still doesn't know what's going on. He hasn't seen anything to tell him that there's just going to be an aggressive attack. But now, even a bit later of Hallucinated Phoenix, he sees that it's a Robo and a 3rd gateway. Notably, Zest also had lack of scouting. So he bothered putting a shield battery in there. But that Robo is only just not going to finish. Immediate chrono on that Immortal, I would assume. Yes, indeed. And then warping in as many Stalkers as possible. Trying to get the second, not the second Sentry, any Sentry. It's really useful for the Adept to try and do. That doesn't look like it's gonna happen. So even with a bit later of a Robo, he still has time to get the Immortal out. Okay. There are Subway subs? Yeah, but like only for like the super famous streamers, I think. I'm not really sure how it works, actually. This is a bit awkward. Now, the force fields are still used. They've at least gotten 2 of the stalkers away from the fight. So Warp Prism Micro has to be used. And oh my god, almost gets the Warp Prism. The Immortal was stuck behind the initial wall off there, but comes forward and is now going to be able to destroy the stalkers. Good target fire from Stats as well. And he actually took out the Warp Prism, so it's an easy tap out. Maybe if the Warp Prism was still alive, warping in, this is a bit different, but Stats with the appropriate response there made it look really easy. Saying I'm not a super popular streamer? I know. That's what I'm saying. I wish. There's this person that I was like looking around. I'm not really a Twitch watcher, right? Like I'm a StarCraft 2 person. 80% StarCraft 2, right? I like my general games, like my variety games. Do I wish sometimes I didn't have to stream StarCraft every day? Yes, of course. But I just watch StarCraft and I play StarCraft. And I stream StarCraft. But I do think it's good to like look around at other Twitch streamers for inspiration. And there's some other Twitch streamers that I actually just straight up like. And I like anything that's really competitive as well. Like if someone just has like really high skill level, right? So I'm looking around and I see this chick who has like this really amazing setup and she's playing PUBG. And she was on the front page, I think. So I check in and I see that she has like 2,000 subscribers. And I'm like, damn, that's really good. And her setup is really, really cool. I don't remember her name, if you're going to ask me. Like, obviously, really high quality camera. Good lighting. The way that she framed her setup is like really sick. And she's apparently pretty good at PUBG, although I couldn't really confirm. So I'm like, man, 2,000 subscribers. That's really cool. I wonder how long she's been streaming. And I look down, and this was like 6 months ago, so I think now she's at 5,000 subscribers. At 2,000 subscribers, she had been streaming for a year. Like, she was like celebrating her year anniversary soon. And I was like, what? No. No. Like, she just exploded. And now she's at 5,000 subscribers. And I think she's taken down her About Me section. But yeah, I was just like, what the... Man, people... Sometimes people just find the right recipe for success, you know? Sometimes I think it is a little limited by the video game, unfortunately. You see how many big, huge streamers there are who made their big stream off of some other games, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you look at StarCraft 2, and there's like no one who has 2,000 subscribers. In Control did, for a little while, but it was pretty small time period. And Roddy's gotten really close, but like no one has that many, and they've been streaming for years. So sometimes it can feel like a little bit, you know, StarCraft 2 is just a hard game to be a streamer of. It's really hard. Magic Gift Spam Wardy up to 1,500, yeah. Oh, base TV at one point was 2,000 as well, but even that was years ago, and that was also a lot of right time, right place gift subs. Thank you, BC Cutie, for the raid. I'm casting / studying some Zest for stats here, and also talking about streaming in general. So, thank you very much for the hosts. I hope you enjoyed your stream. I know you've been playing some WoW and StarCraft 2. Don't get burnt out on that leveling, man. Classic is a grind. Alright, so again, like these very similar gas timings. I actually asked Drogo, because we talked nothing but PvP at the hour of his time, about like the gas timing things. And his response was basically like, yeah, it's too hard to know if they're trying to fake you out to even really pay attention to gas timings in the early game with the Probe Scout. Different story if it's a third and fourth gas or not. Yeah, for the early game, he was like, it's just like not even worthwhile doing a lot of the time. So I was like, oh, okay. So we just like overanalyze everything ever. 2 soccer openers for both parties. With the Scout, Zest 1 saying, Zest just loves doing this pylon with forward thing. I think the one downside, no, it's not even downside. I mean, the downside is if it's scouted and taken out, but, you know, if he puts it this close to home, it's not going to happen. I think he actually uses it in this game. His probe's coming back. But I was thinking maybe there'd be a downside for the shield battery timing, but there's not. Third pylon comes down quick. You don't have a third pylon here if you are going to take a Nexus that fast, but I also don't think that affects any timing. Ooh, Stargate. Stats is looking around. Stats has never not looked around. He's always looked for the pylon, even though he might believe that it's a fake. And it looks like he's about to find it. No, oh my god. Okay, or not. JK. This soccer is gonna get the probe before it can scout the follow-up, which was 2 sentries. I don't think you're really expecting anything else as a follow-up. I guess 4 stalkers could be a thing, but they would probably be a little more aggressive on the field. Adepts were thinking about trying to grab a sentry there, but probably not worth it. And the Adepts might lose their lives for it. Going through the inhibitor zone, gonna take a lot more damage than they should have. Blue Sand Phoenix goes forward, sees not the pylon, not the Stargate. Is going to see a pretty late robo. Although, could you actually tell it's that late? I don't think you could. And it's all in the way. Could be almost finishing for all you know. So he doesn't know about the Stargate. And we have a very fast forge and then a robo. Probably the fastest forge I think we can see. Thank you, Thor2K5 for the 2 months. September. It's practically mandatory. Thank you very much for that resub. Unfortunately, and I hope you weren't bamboozled by this, I feel really bad. The September this year is only for first-time Tier 1 subscribers, I believe. So they've been making it a little worse every year, a little more specific every year. Sentries will guard against 1 Oracle. 2 Oracles is a bit more to ask, but they do have a shield battery on their side, so Zest is just gonna go for the probes on the edge of things. You see things about getting the sentry, but unable to do so. Still saves both Oracles. That was the first time that Stats really figured out there was a Stargate, but I think he just had units in preparation because he didn't realize... He wasn't sure that there wasn't a Stargate. And that did work out for him. He was correct to be uncertain. Maybe the robo actually should have been done at that time. I wonder. I could try and go back and look. I mean, what time did the robo finish? Let's do this. So the robo here finishes like 4:30. So when does it usually finish is the question. Does it usually finish at 4? I'm not sure. You'd have to go back on the other replays and look.
New subscription received. Class 2 access granted.
This is still a sale price. Oh, awesome. Cool. Glad to hear it. Thank you, TrizX, for that Tier 1 sub as well. Really appreciate all the subscribes, guys. I know it might just be for September, and that's totally fine. It's probably a very good practice to have to, you know, immediately, like, cancel after subs and stuff like that, but... It is still very helpful to us subscribers. Yes, well, I guess I am technically that. To us streamers. So, many thanks, much love. And now we're in that period of the game where we just have a lot of hallucinated Phoenix scouts. So Zest does have the Twilight Council researching with absolutely no forge, which was already a little bit suspicious. But unlike that game we saw from Stats where he was going for the Adept all-in, we do have a fake 4th gas taken. So... he was trying to deceive Stats, which might still work. It's possible the forge just was someplace else, or just, I mean, maybe it's actually okay not to get a forge, although I would feel like it's 9 times out of 10, right? If you have this setup, 2 base, Robo, Twilight Council, you usually have a forge. But the 4th gas was a fake. It just leaves 1 guy in gas. He's too busy dealing with this Oracle harassment to have anything out on the map right now. Just an observer on the front lines, but literally just right on the front of his base. A little too late to respond. There is nothing here to defend against this. All the gateways are finishing, and that lack of forge apparently was not enough intel for Stats to figure things out. As the fourth base was a successful bamboozling. And, well, even if he scouted the main base again, there's just not enough gateways. So I guess that was a combination of two things there. The fourth gas being taken and then no extra gateways being put down. Stats felt very safe, even though there was no forge. And Zest does a successful bamboozle. Now, there are Archons prepared, but no Warp Prism to try and save them from their deaths against these Immortals. That would be a different story. Perhaps, if they were being saved, they try to go back to the shield battery. Oh my god, it's so close. But unfortunately, it's just the one shield battery. Two more shield batteries are finishing up. A third one even finishing up. This Stasis Trap somehow gonna go ahead and Stasis Trap at least one Zealot. The Warp Prism soaks up a lot of the shield battery, but it is an important tool to have. Now picks up those Archons, which are now finally getting that shield back, but is it too late? Still a lot of units left over here from Zest. He's been freely microing and freely warping in with his own Warp Prism in the back lines there. Soccer is nowhere close to that Warp Prism and being bullied back by the Immortals. Looks like the Immortals have both of their shields popped at the same time. Oracle's even getting in on the fight. Do take out an Archon. That's not too bad. And the Archon here from Stats trying to get to the back lines, but is it enough? Two Immortals still live for Zest up against mostly Stalkers, and that's not a good thing for Stats, who's the guy with the Stalkers. I think it's going to be good enough. One Archon to try and save the day, but it's at like 0 health. It's going to die immediately. So close to death, but also not really helpful. There it is. There it is. Gonna die. Come on. It's gotta die. Gotta die. There it goes. Gets popped. And there's one Immortal left with a handful of Adepts. That's gonna be enough for Zest to win. Stats with the almost last second clutch defense there. Would have been a very different story if he had shield batteries from the get-go. But Zest is best. Successfully fakes out his opponent. GG.